10 years or so, I did corporate communications. I ended up with the World Bank, and I was there for the last 3 years, and then found this program actually through several colleagues there. I was looking for a program with flexibility and international focus, academic rigor, and kind of a diverse range of opinions. And I think if you look at the program overview from Mundus MAPP, that's what they're focused on. I think they have an interesting blend of a very flexible coursework load, as well as pretty unique study locations. I've never really seen any place like ISS. The diversity here is pretty astounding and very unique, I think. But I think if you look at the other track options, there's really, you can't lose. They're fantastic institutions, all with an international focus, and yeah.
Now, are you going to Barcelona or to York?
So my track is to Barcelona, but I hear York is lovely as well. And then in terms of the interactions with the Budapest cohort, as the student rep, there are 2 others in Budapest at CEU who represent that cohort, and we're in contact very frequently. So there's a kind of democratic dialogue that takes place here in The Hague, and then simultaneously in CEU in Budapest. And then the channels for exchange are through the student reps mostly. But I'm sure during the study trip it'll be a little more on the ground democracy.
We'll really get to know each other,
right.
I think. Yeah. Purvi, could you tell a bit about your background and why you are studying in the ISS?
Thanks. My name is Purvi and I'm from India. I'm here for the other track, the ISS York track, which focuses on governance and development. So I think John has sort of covered quite a few of the bases and a few things also that I wanted to say. But just because a lot of the people who are attending this webinar would also be looking at other programs of public policy. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why, for example, I chose this program. And there are a few things at play there. One of them is, as John had also mentioned, an international focus. So not just in terms of the people that you're studying here with, but also if you will look at several public policy programs, they might have specific geographical focus, or at the very least they tend to deal with a particular country or a particular geographical focus or a regional focus more, which is something that is very unique for the Mundus MAPP program, I would say. And even till now, in my experience, it's been something where irrespective of what country or what region or what background you come from, it's all right for you to be part of these courses that we have over here and find some kind of application to what you might be interested in. I think another thing is definitely, again, something that John has already mentioned, which is getting an opportunity to interact with a lot of people from various backgrounds. I am a journalism student. I was, and after that I did a lot of voluntary work back in India, and I was working with a non-governmental organization. It was much later and after quite a few years of work experience that I decided that I wanted to do something, I wanted to get a master's degree. But when I was looking at public policy programs, and this also might be true for a number of other countries and for a number of you who are attending the webinar, public policy is not something that is very popular as a curriculum in several of these places that we come from. So which is why I was looking abroad. What set this program apart and what is something that you might find useful is the fact that, and as Kareem had also outlined, that there are all these different components to the program. So you have a lot of focus on building on a theoretical understanding, using that in your the research component quite usefully, and at the same time also finding ways of applying this in the real world. Which is something that in some programs in my research, when I was looking at various programs, I felt that quite a few of them have a heavy emphasis on just the practical component or do not have a research component. And for a complete master's program, I think that this sort of checked all the boxes.
Well, thank you for your introduction. I assume that there will be quite some questions already. Darren, do you have a question for one of us behind the table?
Are you done, Karim, with all the presentation, or because I was thinking to leave the question and answer at the very end?
Perhaps I could just pick up on a particular point that John and also Purvi have talked about.
in the sense of what actually sets this program here, that apart from other kind of programs of public policy, is this kind of focus on not just treating public policy as a kind of a problem-solving realm, but also we heavily and directly deal with what we call problem-situating kind of techniques. And I think that's, and in so many ways, that's what we were talking about. What does this mean? Of course, we all have a basic understanding of public policy where we are trained in, to identify particular problems, to think about ideas, and to come up with solutions to solve these particular problems. Now, we cherish this particular approach, but in these particular tracks that we are talking about here, we go a bit beyond this particular philosophy. How? Well, basically, it's because we also attempt to put more weight on the manner in which we also think about the problems and the solutions themselves, and to what extent they are really problems and solutions. In that sense, we also take the theoretical realm a bit also more seriously. We treat it as a living organism by itself as well. So it is not just about matching a problem to a particular theoretical construction and then we see whether it works, whether we can apply it or not, but we actually also think about the manner in which we see the world ourselves as well, and to what extent we would like to use this to solve particular problems. In that sense, we start giving a bit more weight in relation to the political process. Who are the potential winners from different ideas, or the potential losers? How we can look at it from a variety of different theoretical point of views. What kind of this actually might create in relation to the whole processes of meaning and meaning making. So as you can see, within this kind of a broad general explanation, problem situating is an invitation. It's an encouragement for us to go beyond kind of a mechanical understanding of like problem and solution to the problem, to actually also thinking about why a problem is a problem, why a particular solution has been selected, against what, and how the politics and the power that are embedded in all of these processes, how do they play out and how do they interact? That is quite central to the philosophy of these two tracks that are embedded within the RSS general framework.
Maybe, Karim, you can explain a bit more about the background of our students, because as it happens to be, we have here two students who have a background in journalism.
Sure.
But I think most of the students have a background in public administration, public policy. Can you say a bit more about this background and the type of students that are entering the program?
We basically, thank you, we actually focus more on backgrounds in social sciences in general. And our admission criteria focuses a lot on your academic experience, on work experience, and on your motivation, why you want to join the program as well. So in general, a variety of our students fit within the broad world of social sciences, but sometimes and of course there are lots of debates of what constitutes social sciences. So for example, in certain traditions, you could argue sometimes psychology is not, but in other traditions psychology is in. We have a kind of a flexible understanding of what social sciences in general entail, but at the same time we link it with as I said earlier, with the work experience, but also with the motivation. So even if we think that an academic program might not fit within social sciences, it's actually depending on what kind of motivation, why you would like to actually choose this program, what kind of work you've done as well, might be a very important kind of, it's actually kind of an asset for the student and also asset for us in the program to actually unleash this kind of an interaction processes as well. So I don't know if that answers really your question, but our students are quite diverse geographically, culturally, but also when it comes to the big world, big general world of social sciences. Yeah. As well.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience, Gavin?
Yes, we have, particularly their career option. What happens after they graduate? They want to know what they can do after they graduate from a lot of our students, well actually there are a variety of tracks that we have seen now from experience, because we've been dealing with this program for
since 2007.
Since 2007. So the biggest proportion I would say are people who go back to their to the government, if you want, domain. or government / also NGO world at the same time. We have also an increasing proportion of students who are actually following PhDs. This is actually kind of a category that is moving quite high up, and a significant proportion of, or if you want another track, is graduates who go and work for international organizations. So I would say these are primarily the three recognizable tracks that we see.
Okay, thank you, Karim. Another one, I don't know, probably for Vika, I'm not sure. A prospect asks, if admitted to the social policy track, is it possible to change to the public policy track?
What is the social policy track?
Well, that's a question from the student. I'm not sure. I mean,
well, it would be asked when you are applying to the program. You have to indicate which track you want to apply to. So also by those two universities, your application is assessed, and they decide whether you will be accepted to the program. So normally you are not changing your track during the study program. If you have a very well argumented reason why you want to move from one track to another one, you can send an email to the coordinator of the program, CEU, and the administrator, and give you reasons why you want to move to another track, and then it will be decided whether that is possible or not.
Thank you, Vika. This is a very specific question. A student, I have studied BA in Development Studies, and I have been working in the NGO, particularly focusing on gender equity and equality. I would like to know, how will this program enhance my skill in policy analysis?
Given this background, and in relation to these particular tracks, the student will be exposed to some forces. I would like to put some emphasis on some that actually deal with policy analysis. But given the brief background that I was highlighting a bit before, this is, especially the tracks at ISS, this is not a program that actually primarily focuses and deals with policy analysis as such. In practical terms, I mean, I've talked a bit before about problem situating, how we are understanding public policy beyond the realm of public administration and also beyond the realm of problem solving. The student can wish to take some elective courses, for example, that speak to the concerns and needs of policy analysis. That is quite feasible, but that does not speak to the nature and the identity of the tracks at ISS. I would highly recommend those of you who are really interested in public administration or in more problem-solving kind of concern, the entry to the Mundus MAPP via the CEU track might be a bit more appropriate for you. At ISS, we are more interested in the analysis that go around with public policy, and not so much policy analysis per se. So let me repeat the idea a bit so that I can make it a bit more clear. I'm not necessarily saying that a concern for policy analysis is not met in our track. Actually, students, if they wish to do so, there are a variety of elective courses that can be taken for that particular kind of an objective, but that does not speak to our major identity. I hope the answer was quite clear in relation to that.
Thank you, Karim. Another question about having a bachelor or a master degree. Is there a preference for acceptance? Is there a higher chance if you have a master degree to enter this program, or is it with bachelor is still okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to be very direct and honest about this. We definitely have a bias for the bachelor. We believe that if you have a master's already, I mean, for us that might play, it might allow us to start thinking like, so why do you want to do another master's? Unless it was a master's in a completely different field, and you are trying to explain to us why it is really a burning desire for you to do a master in public policy. So yes, the ultimate bias first is for someone who only has a BA. Now, in certain countries, And given different educational regulatory frameworks, we understand that actually issuing a master's is an important categorical factor of them being admitted. So for particular countries, we actually admit the people who have a master's degree. But I would say this is the exception and not the norm.
Thank you, Karim. Something for the students. Maybe you can explain about the class environment and the teaching methods.
Okay, so we've finished almost half of our time here in ISS, and I'm going to speak a little bit just in chronologically how it's been. So definitely, I mean, most of it's an interactive. Most of your classes are quite interactive. It also, in all honesty, and this would be true for any program, depends on who your professor is as well. Some professors are more interactive, some not so much. Also, it would depend on what the structure of the lecture and generally the kind of things that you're talking about. So it's possible that even within the same course, some of your lectures are more the professor speaking to the class, but at the same time, towards the end, it can become more interactive. One thing that I do want to point out over here is that because of the size of the number of students that the program takes in, I think that works in our favor, because personally, for example, I prefer a limited number of people in the classroom, but at the same time enough so you have a diverse range of opinions and ideas that are coming into class. But as you may have also come across in your research, there are several programs that have courses and classrooms that have up to 50, 60, more than that students. So it is something that I definitely took into account when I was making a choice as to where I wanted to go. So that definitely opens up for you to be able to ask more questions and have more time on that kind of thing. I think other than that, also the way the program is structured in ISS, I particularly felt that the courses are spaced out really well. So if you're the kind of person who likes to take some time and spend some time, whether it is on reading material, whether it is generally to think about what you want to do, it allows you that space. Even when you have to take elective courses like we have this term, and this term has been sort of heavier than the first term, but at the same time, I think it's spaced out really well. So it enables you to do your work like a bit more efficiently. Yeah, and another thing, just one more thing that I wanted to point out is that several courses, at least that the Mundus MAPP students, a typical Mundus MAPP student would end up taking, are focused more on assessment, which is based on take-home essays, for example. So you spend some time reading about topics that interest you. You really engage with them slightly more deeply than you would just if you were doing them from one lecture to another, and you write a paper. I think that, again, personally, and it's up to students to make what they want of this, but so at a master's, in a master's level program, that gives you the opportunity to engage more deeply with what you're studying instead of a focus on written exams. There are a few courses where you will be expected to write exams, but at the same time, I think a larger component would be where you on take-home assignments, which works quite well. Want to add something?
Yeah, well, I would say that, this is from an ISS perspective. I've only heard good things from the CEU side, but I believe they're doing their own webinar at a later date, so they'll have some insight there. But as far as ISS goes, it's hard to talk about the academic environment for the Mundus MAPP program without talking about the cohort, because you will be taking the main classes with the same people. And that's, I think, a really great space to kind of grow friendships. Our cohort is very tight. I think everyone likes each other. We hang out after class. There's study groups, there's reading groups. We have drop boxes set up for the reading materials, which is fairly well organized. People tend to find their roles within the group, and it's really a journey you're on together with the rest of the people in your program. We're 15. I think that number can vary slightly from year to year. So then you have these spaces where you have a few classes with just your cohort. and your convener, which would be Kareem. And then there are your elective courses, which Kareem can help you find and custom fit to your interests. And I think that adds another layer of flexibility to the program. You can do the research on which kinds of professors fit your teaching style, which classes seem to fit with the topics you're interested in, and then make your choices pretty well into the program. So that is also helpful. And yeah, and I would just say that provides a good mix of an extremely rigorous environment with Kareem. The classes move quickly. There's a lot of information to cover. It's very rich discussion. And you can combine that with other teaching styles or whatever suits you with your remaining elective courses.
Thank you. Maybe I can ask you about The Hague. Maybe the first question would be, do you have a bike already? Because all Dutch people are cycling everywhere. And how do you feel about studying in The Hague? Would you say a bit about that?
And maybe the relationship between the bicycle and public policy.
Oops, is there a relationship? Maybe you should elaborate on that one then. The Hague, what would you think?
So I happen to be fairly tall, which is helpful in choosing a bike. The Dutch tend to be fairly gravitationally gifted. So
not all of them.
Not all of them. But the bike purchasing can be difficult for those of shorter stature. So beware when you come. The Hague is a really interesting town. I came from Washington, D.C., and I find a lot of similarities here. There are many international organizations. There's large expat communities outside of ISS that live within the city. I live within an area called the Schildersweg, which is an integrating neighborhood to the south, and a very diverse population from Moroccan to North African and all over. And I think that makes it a pretty unique place in the Netherlands and in Europe especially. There's events going on all the time in embassies. There's the Peace Palace just up the road. And they actually have a beach, which I was very surprised to learn about. I thought it would just be a ragged cliff, but there's sand and a pier, and in the few weeks out of the year where the weather's nice enough to go, it's quite lovely. So I'm enjoying it. And then Schiphol Airport, you can't get a more convenient access to the rest of Europe. There are flights from Amsterdam anywhere in the world really, but especially in Europe it's very cheap to move around, which makes this a great place to explore Europe if you haven't been. And I've heard the same for Budapest. You have certainly access to a more interesting and diverse series of countries over in the east. But yeah, I think this feels like the center of a lot of things that are going on in the world, in the Netherlands, and in the realm of public policy.
So you did quite some trips already in Europe.
I've taken a few, yes.
Very nice. Did you?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, definitely on the bike scene, I've heard from a lot of shorter people that it is quite difficult, and you have to keep mentioning how tall you are. But at the same time, I mostly walk, so I can talk about that. And I think it's a lovely city. It's not very big, so easy to cover a lot of it. And if you like walking, if you like being on the bike, there is a lot for you to do. Also, I think culturally it's quite interesting where we are, because as John had mentioned, there are a lot of communities in The Hague itself and events that happen around these communities, whether it's festivals, etc. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, but also given that you're close to both Amsterdam and Rotterdam, where the Erasmus University is headquartered, a lot of other cultural events that are quite cheap, and if you're a young student below the age of 26 or 27, which neither of us are lucky enough to be, but if you are, then it's even cheaper. So I think that's good. The other thing is, of course, that at least where I come from, and I find this really nice about The Hague and generally about Netherlands, is I think how well it's connected by public transport. So that's something that one should absolutely take full advantage of as well.
Yeah, my experience is that most of our students have seen more about the country than we Dutch people, I must say. Maybe we should take another question, Dan.
Yes, thank you for all the answers. The next question, I think this one, a lot of people are asking the same thing. It's about scholarship available for this program. maybe Vika will take the floor.
You might or might not be aware that we used to have scholarships available from the Erasmus Mundus program from Brussels. This year we won't have those scholarships available. There are some scholarships opportunities. The consortium as itself provides 4 scholarships, especially earmarked for students in this program, which consists of a 50% reduction of the tuition fee for each year. For the students who are coming to ISS, you will, if you go to our website, you will find a database with scholarships available for students studying at ISS. So, for example, for students from Colombia, there is a scholarship program called Futuro, with whom we have, for whom we are a preferred university partner. There are scholarships called Orange Tulip scholarships, standing specific for the Netherlands, which are available for some countries. And for those students who have no financial support at all, ISS is offering 2 scholarship programs, which are called the Excellent Student Scholarship Program and the Hardship Fund. So we try to provide as much as possible financial support to our students. I know that CEU also has some extra scholarships available, and I think you should check the website of the University of York and of the Institute eBay in Barcelona also for scholarship opportunities or financial support.
Thank you, Vika. To the students' question. Why did you choose the ISS track instead of the CEU track?
Yeah, it's a difficult decision. I think about a week before I sent my application, I still wasn't exactly sure which track I wanted to provide. I think the benefit there is you can't lose. I think each track offers a really interesting take on the approach to public policy. I would not recommend choosing it based on purely geographical reasons, though I'm sure there are some areas people would much rather live than others. But again, I think each Budapest, I've been there and visited the campus. It's wonderful. Here in The Hague, the campus is lovely. Barcelona is hard to beat, and I think I've heard the York campus is wonderful as well. So my own rationale for choosing the ISS eBay track again was the focus on, I think, the interdisciplinary component of bringing together a lot of the social sciences to tackle issues within public policy, not just through problem solving, but this wider understanding of the playing field. I think right now a lot of people in the public policy sphere, whether they're doing public policy or studying it, are speaking past each other a lot of the time. There are many different paradigms operating that people have a tough time breaking out of, or even being self-conscious of that's the world they're inhabiting. And I think learning how to navigate through those, learning how they relate to each other, what are the historical roots, what are the internal logics operating, how they can communicate to each other, and then times of how they cannot communicate to each other, really helps you direct your energies in the most productive ways. Could possibly lead to you overcoming some entrenched problems in your institutions, in your governments, or with, even within your friends or colleagues. And I think in the larger field, I think this style of education is going to have to become more mainstream because of the types of problems that we're facing globally and the diverse array of opinions surrounding these. I think wading through all of that takes a tremendous amount of patience and training, and I do believe that that's the future, and I think Mundus MAPP is ahead of the curve on that.
I just want to quickly add. So the thing is that if you look at the 4 tracks that are available, they're quite different from each other. And even when as students, as applicants, when we are going through the process of figuring out what program or where we want to go and study, what we want to focus on, it is a deeply introspective exercise. So if you really think about it, it's not about why either of us chose the ISS tracks, but more about what you would personally be interested in. So I mean, if you're going to CEU, you're either going to be focusing on European governance or on more finance and trade kind of two areas of study. And as we've been talking during this webinar also, if you're going into the ISS tracks, you're either going to York, where you're doing governance and development, or to Barcelona, which is more focused on international political economy. So it's number one, it's definitely what you are personally interested in and what you pull to, you feel or pull towards. Secondly, I think, and like John also said, please do not think about the 4 countries or the 4 locations that play here. It's essentially about what you want to study and what you want to do after this. And again, if we speak just about the Mundus MAPP program, then ideally, for me, it was again a mix of the theoretical component, the research component, and the practical component, and how they sort of speak to each other, as compared to a lot of other programs that focus more on one than the others. So I'm going for the governance and development track to York, and that is again based a lot on what kind of work I've done before I came here, and what I'm broadly looking to do afterwards. So I am interested in reading and studying more about how we think about public policy, not just about the technical aspects of how you analyze a policy or how you write it, but everything else that goes on alongside. The York track, I think, is a little bit more spaced out in the sense that for those who want to spend some time, who are interested, of course, first and foremost in governance and development, and also want to spend some more time on writing your thesis or thinking about your research and what you want to do, it does give you somewhat a little bit more time than, for example, the ISS Barcelona track. But then again, first and foremost, it is about what you are interested in, what you want to do after you finish this program.
I think the website mundusmapp.org is providing a lot of information as well on the program, also on the institutes, and there's also a dedicated Facebook group. I think you will be also part of it, so if you would like to hear other opinions, I would suggest to join that Facebook group and to ask your questions there as well to get more information. Also, the program guide is available. Let me show it on the website, so you can download it, and there's a lot of information about the program and about the structure available in the program guide.
Thank you. 2 questions left. We have time, 10 minutes. First one, will the Mundus MAPP students at ISS study together with the master program students?
So the Mundus MAPP and then ISS writ large together. This does happen again with the elective classes. These are general courses that can't help but get caught up in the frequent parties in the dormitories or the very open areas, at least here in ISS, where you can meet and hang out with the other ISS students. So it's not a closed system by any means, but I think the program is more weighted towards the kind of core classes, and then maybe 30 to 40% of your time is within electives, and you'll be with the rest of the student body at that point.
Thank you, John. Last question of today. Yes, they know that they have to do the internship, but will they have to find the internship by themselves, or ISS will help them find internship?
They will have to find the internship by themselves.
Okay.
That's a key important component for us. Well, it's also part of the learning experience. ISS helps sometimes in the sense that after you find a particular opportunity, you need some contractual forms, some kind of administrative kind of support. Of course, ISS will not shy away at all from these kind of obligations. So if I have to say it in this way, ISS helps a bit in that sense after the fact, but you will have to find your own internship. On the other hand, we also allow for internships where, if you are interested, of course, it is your decision to work with faculty members, which will also count as an internship. If you opt for that option, then obviously ISS is helping quite a lot.
I think in general we can say that all students do find their internship in the first year in ISS. And I think the internships in CEU track are a bit different because they have policy labs. So they offer that opportunity to students in the CEU track. So that's a different setup. But I think also for students in that track, it's easy, or I think it's easier to find this internship than in ISS. But so far, all students did find an internship position in the Hague.
And if I have to add, so in a way, it is easier at CEU because it's a policy lab, but it also acts like a kind of a course component. The huge benefit of our way of how to do it here at ISS is that, like I said a bit earlier, it's a learning experience in itself. It's not a course component. You can tailor-made it to your needs and to what you really want to do, what you're really interested in, what kind of a future, perhaps, employer you're actually thinking about. So there is also some merit into the flexibility that you have in your own hands in relation to that internship. And as Vicky was trying to say, all students have managed over a long period of time to find internships. So this kind of flexibility is by no means a hindrance. Actually, it's an opportunity more than anything else.
I think so too. I think we're coming to the end of this virtual open day. Maybe there's this kind of last word you would like to say, to share with the...
One last question that came in. One last question. Is there an academic calendar that they can have a look? Where can they have that again?
It's on the website. It's available on the website. I think you can find it on the academic structure. And there is a PDF with all the information there.
Okay. Thank you, Vika. Okay. So,
some last words?
Not really, but then just if you do choose to come for the Mundus MAPP program, I'm sure you won't be sorry.
There's the famous Chinese farewell that says, "May you live in interesting times," and I think there's probably an ISS equivalent of "May you study in interesting times," and I think you couldn't really pick a better time. In spite of it's not a great state of affairs in the world, but in terms of studying, I don't think there could be a richer time to enter into this field. And I think, in class, sometimes the agenda for the day shifts with what was said the night before, or I hear Donald Trump quoted, his tweets are repeated, and then we'll spend the whole day taking real-time news that's happening to kind of adjust the program. And I think that's a really interesting angle that public policy enjoys that many fields do not. And with a flexible program like ours, I think we're ready to kind of ride those waves as they come. So.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, students, for participating in this virtual open day. Like I said in the beginning, this virtual open day will be published on the ISS website. So for those of you who did not manage to catch the good audio in the beginning, please take your time and watch the first part of the virtual open day later on. Well, thank you, Pulvi and John and Karim, of course, for helping us in this virtual open day. And we're looking forward to meeting you next year in The Hague, or maybe in Budapest. Thank you.
Yep.